Great, thank you very much. Micha, is it time to be greedy now? Do you view the European continent, the Eurozone, the 17 nations as one entity, or do you see big differences between South and North, between Spain, Germany, Greece, France, and so forth?
Well, it's time to be greedy or to be active. I'm very glad to see you all around here, but I think that you are in the wrong place. You should be around in Europe looking for acquisition opportunities. This is what you need to do in these days. You know, in crisis times, the investors like to minimize risk and sit on the fence, but there is quite a consensus about right now that Europe is not only at the bottom of the crisis, it's picking up. And picking up is the turning point that the buyers should be around, because the risk is certainly lower, but the sellers are still licking their wounds after 5-6 years of the crisis, and they are more flexible and more hungry, and the buyers should take advantage of this situation. We looked into opportunities in Europe. There are opportunities and there are wild opportunities. We surveyed transaction multiples in the last 3 years compared to the 2006 to 2008 period. And in some countries like Italy, Spain, and even the Benelux, we came out with findings that value to EBITDA multiples are down 35%. It is certainly very interesting opportunities. So sellers will be willing to be flexible on price, flexible on terms, want to close the deal fast and easy. The same is true not only about sellers, because you do the transaction not only with sellers, you do the transaction with the employees, and they also are much more generous. They want to keep their jobs. And last but not least, the governments, local governments and central governments, they try to help the acquirers to close the deals and to be easy on the terms, because they want to keep the business in their countries and not let the crisis take them down.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for the recommendation to our audience that they should be buying assets in Europe. But how would they know all of this if they wouldn't be here and hear these recommendations? So now, tomorrow, they can get on a plane and go and buy the assets. So thanks for this. Roger, I'd like to go back to you. People have been very fearful of a double-dip recession in America. That actually did not happen, primarily because they've injected so much money into the economy, which in retrospect was probably a good move. However, in Europe, de facto 2008 and then again 2012 were recession years. But again, it does look it does seem to be that sentiments are changing. Germany's doing well, UK is doing well. Some recent statistics from Spain and other countries. And above all, I'd like to ask you about the banks. You've been the CEO of Rothschild, that was a few years back, but is this a great opportunity to look at European banks now, or are they only now starting to unravel the big issues and the big problems that they have? They are trading at very, very low multiples. And the question is this a good opportunity?
Well, first of all, I think that the health of the banks depends, of course, on the health of the economy. And if the economy is recovering, it will be much easier for banks. And I'm not worried about the situation of the banks, because the world crisis we went through gave us one lesson. It is that the governments understood that to let down any bank would be a catastrophe. the lesson of Lehman Brothers has been in the minds of everybody, and it's clear that no banks will be abandoned, because we know now, and the governments know, that the consequences would be too terrible. So I wouldn't be worried about the banking system. I think that the lessons were taken into account. And if we expect the European economy to recover, which I think there is a consensus around this table, then we shouldn't be worried about the banks. So if one wants to speculate on stock markets, the fact of going into the banking system is not so stupid. I notice also among the reasons to be optimistic about Europe is the strength of the euro currency compared to the US dollar currency. It shows that even if we are still with a very high unemployment, even things are moving slowly, we are probably on the upper side of the trend.
Thank you. But again, Roger, there's always a flip side to this. And the euro is relatively strong. That obviously might have a side effect or a backfire on the employment again in Europe. Is the ECB, for example, doing a lot towards finding the right exchange rate or doing what is necessary to keep a strong euro or not such a strong euro?
Well, we have with Draghi a very wise head of the European Central Bank. He did not follow completely the example of the US Federal Bank, but he has followed it in part, and it was not so easy for him because there was the opposition of the German side, who was very opposed to any substantial injection of cash into the European economy. He did it in a wise way, and I think that the fact that things are recovering shows that it has been masterminded.
Okay, thank you. Minister Maxime Bourg, your office was kind enough to send us an interesting slide going back 500 years about the relationship between Valencia and the Jewish people. And it turns out that one of the first venture capitalists in Spain at that time, Luis de Santangel, a Valencian Jewish venture capitalist, actually helped Columbus to get to the New World, to America. So thanks to him and to many other people, this conference is now held in English and not in Latin. So thanks for this slide and for a little bit of the history between the region of Valencia and the Jewish people. But back to your the issues that you're facing. Europe is around 24%, if I have the figure correctly. Sorry. You're currently, your region is 24%. In Spain, unemployment in Spain, it's 26%. But the Eurozone is hovering around only, quote unquote, 12%. That's still a high figure. But obviously, Spain's always associated with very high unemployment. So even though you're doing a little bit better than other parts of Spain, what are you actually doing to stimulate the economy in your region? And is this a short process, or is this going to take months or years?
Thank you very much. Just a very short comment about common history. Also, the first part of the slide shows that Jewish people lived in our region and in the city of Valencia during the Middle Ages, when King James I reconquered Valencia from the Muslims. He settled Jewish people in the city, and 10% of the population was Jewish in Valencia. Unfortunately, as you know, in 1492, the successors of King James I made the wrong decision, which was dismissing the Jews. That's the reason Mr. Luis de Santangel didn't have a Jewish name. He converted himself into apparently a Christian, and because he sponsored the trip to America, he got protection from the king, not to be being prosecuted by the Inquisition, but the rest of the Jewish people suffered, so most of them left, and Mr. Santachem not only financed the trip to North America, or to South America, the discovery of America, but also the departure of most Jewish people that lived in our city and had to go to other places of the Mediterranean. So what we do about our unemployment? You have to analyze deeply the roots of unemployment. Basically, we see three areas. One is education, and the other is fraud, and the other is development of industry. Education, when we look at our figures of 24%, if we split it between non-educated people and educated people, we see educated people have 10% unemployment, non-educated people have 46% unemployment. An example, we have training centers for cooks for the tourism business. Tourism business is 20% of our GDP. People who are trained as cooks 80% of them get a job. So it's definitely something to get the right people trained. That's one of the, obviously fighting against fraud is the other. And then the other is pushing more forward the innovation and the globalization of our local industry. In this sense, we have made some cooperation already with MIT, with different programs. We have programs to bring smaller companies together. And that's one of the reasons we are here in Israel, is also to establish stronger links with the innovation ecosystem here, so that we get some of the know-how and also get more close relationships with companies, with startups that create technology. Just coming to a point, and I give the word back to you immediately, is, as you said, the low multiples. I have to add to that, that most of the Spanish companies are pretty highly leveraged. You have to consider the public sector in Spain is 90% of GDP leverage, but the private sector owes more than 200% of the GDP. So if you get a reasonable multiple with a pretty high leverage, the equity you need to put in right now to get a company to a reasonable price is there in Spain. Sorry.
I have a non-economic question. I heard that the Jews who were expelled from Spain, their descendants are offered to get back the Spanish nationality. Did you see any rush on the Spanish nationality?
I don't have the data. I don't see any rush, but it's obviously the happy outcome is that we are an Israeli and a Jewish-friendly nation now, and obviously anybody is welcome to come to Spain, and that's really what we want to move forward also with coming here and getting more business. If we develop business, people will come, obviously. There has to be real interest and real opportunities, and then people are always welcome to come to Spain as a visitor or to be a resident.